On this episode of Lead That Thing, I talk to Lorry Rifkin, CPA and founder of Lunch with Lorry. Welcome back, everyone. Today, my guest is Lorry Rifkin. Lorry is a CPA and has nearly 40 years of general business experience. His expertise ranges from accounting, operations, sales, and marketing as an owner and employee. He tells you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. As a 100% introvert, he has learned the hard way, by trial and error, how to succeed in an extrovert's world. With the launch of hashtag Lunch with Lorry, he is now helping others with his mentoring, branding, and networking training company. Welcome, Lorry.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here, Aruna. This has been a journey to even be on a podcast. If I would look back 24 months ago, I would say no way would I ever be on here. And what I want to talk about today is the journey of networking, especially as an introvert. There's three classes of people that really need to learn to network: introverts, recent college grads, and unemployed people. And what I have learned is that there's no school for networking. Colleges don't teach it. Many people don't know what it really means. And I have been taking notes on my networking journey and pulling it together. And out of that came Lunch with Lorry, the simple concept of taking someone to breakfast or lunch, asking them questions about them, not about me, learning about their life, not learning about what they do, what product they sell, not learning that they want to have a job, but learning what their favorite vacation is, learning what their favorite childhood memory is, learning what excites them, learning what their fears are. So Lunch with Lorry is about learning about the other person. And the actual lunch part, so I would write that story, post it on LinkedIn, and I've done over 100 of those. But the world of COVID hit. You can't take people out to lunch and breakfast anymore. And one of my mentors said, "What are you going to do now?" And I go, "What do you mean?" I sort of knew what he meant. What are you going to do now? Well, I froze for 2 weeks. I'm no different than a lot of people. COVID upset my whole world. And what he meant was, when are you going to go online? And since that day, I've been on multiple podcasts. I've done my own podcast. I've done webinars. I've done live presentations to groups. And I'm going to keep on going. And in fact, I am now working on creating an online course of how to network called Networking from the Trenches to teach people how to network.
Wonderful. And Lorry, speaking about your event, that's where I met you. I
Right.
attended one of your Lunch with Lorry meetings, and that opened up doors for me as well. I met people that I'm now part of a couple of entrepreneur women networks, and it was easily accessible through your meeting because it was very casual, and you find out about people and you make connections very quickly because you connect with them on a personal level. So exactly what you're saying, that's what made your event different from most of the others. So we talked about in your bio how you're 100% introvert, and I think that leads into this question. So you learned for yourself how to get out of that and start to be successful in an extrovert's world, as you put it. So how did you recognize the need to start educating people on this topic? What drove that for you?
I've always had an exceedingly high curiosity index. And when I learn stuff, I've always shared the knowledge, always been excited about learning and knowledge, always sharing it. And and studying introverts, extroverts, networking, I learned a bunch of stuff that just wasn't obvious. You know, I originally started networking. I was unemployed. I networked to find a job. I'd meet someone to say, "Can you help me find a job?" That's not networking. If I had said to them, "Tell me about your family. What do you like? What excites you?" That's networking. Networking is getting to learn people. It's called giving. You're giving someone the opportunity to talk about themselves. I have two things called the give and the take. When you network with the give, you get the take. And most people start networking asking for something. They want to
Mm.
take something from their network immediately. And there's a thing I call the network gods. Usually they don't allow you to take something. So I started learning that when I started morphing from asking for stuff and giving stuff, good things would happen. And so I'm an introvert. The only reason I started networking, I had some women mentors who said, if you don't network, you're going nowhere. So, one thing about networking I've learned, you have to have a necessity to network. You have to have a desire to do it. It doesn't mean you're good yet, it just means you have the desire to learn it. And one other thing people ask me all the time, they go, no way are you an introvert. And I really am. And what they don't understand, here's the definitions, because this is confusing. If I take an introvert and extrovert to a networking event with 100 people, the difference is when they get home. A introvert will have to have quiet, darkness, stillness, not do anything to recover their energy. An extrovert gets energy from that event, comes home like my wife is an extrovert. She's going to get on the phone and call 30 girlfriends and say, I had a blast. I ate this person was wearing this. That's the difference. And so if you're an introvert and you need to network, what you're going to learn is you have to have energy before you go to an event. That's really the difference.
Mm. So from this process of starting to share your knowledge on how to network and the benefits of that, what have you as a person sharing this knowledge gained from actually sharing this message? What have you learned? I mean, what kind of growth has that given you?
I have grown because I am meeting all people all across the United States and hearing stories that motivate me to do things. I get ideas. I personally get potential customers. I get vendors, which is another thing. Networking, I'm going to regress 1 second. People look at networking to get jobs or get a sales opportunity. There's other dimensions they ignore. Getting vendors. I did a real estate development project in Milwaukee. I got vendors through my
Mm,
wife's networking. So you get vendors, potential employees. If you network and you have a company and need some employees, you could find employees through networking. Friends. You could find friends. I have people now who come over to my house I can have a meal with from networking. So the things like friends, vendors are ignored when you think about networking. So one of the things I
mm,
teach people is, and one of the things Lunch of Lori is designed to get you friends and other opportunities, not jobs and sell things, because you're not allowed to say what you do. You're not allowed to say what you want. And that's the little secret I learned in networking. When you network from the heart, you have more success. It takes longer, but you have
mm.
long-term success then.
Oh, that's pretty insightful, and I think great advice, and I think a different approach to traditional networking or the traditional definition of networking. So tell us about a success story that has come about from Lunch with Lori or sharing your message around networking.
I have one that sticks out through networking. I did a presentation to Pong, which is a group of unemployed people in Milwaukee, and someone there sees me, contacts me, and they think I'm going to help them get a job. But one of the things I do is spray questions out there. I have series of cascading questions to get down to the root of someone's soul. The person who actually invented Lunch of Lori told me it's an X-ray vision into a soul. And so I started talking to this lady. She's looking for a job. In the process of talking to her, because she wanted me to help her immediately with a job, I go, no, I want to know what you like. What do you do? What are your hobbies? She tells me one of her hobbies is running 26-mile marathons. I say, oh my God, how do you do that? Well, I train for months. I do all this. And at the end, I said, you're using none of your experience in running for a marathon. You have to train hard. You have to have perseverance. You have to endure pain and obstacles. That is all stuff employers want. and you don't mention one of those items in looking for a job. And so I said, until you do that, don't tell me that you really care about a job. So she was very mad at me, actually wrote me sort of a nasty email, was totally upset. A month later, I get an email from her, let me show you what I'm doing. I'm incorporating what you told me into looking for a job. And now on her email signature, she has a line about being a marathon runner. So that's a typical Lorry cycle. When you are a person like me that tells you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, you will not like me in the beginning. I'm like a fine wine. I have to grow on you over time. What you realize, though, at the end of the day, I have your back covered. I want the best for you, and I'm not going to walk away from helping you. But most people say they want help. They really don't want help, because help usually means you have to change.
Right.
And people could say, here's the flip side of the coin. People could say, Lorry, it's great to dish it out. Can you take it? I went on Young Guns TV a month ago, and 3 panelists peppered me with questions, and I had to handle it. So the rule of giving advice is, if you give advice, you got to take advice.
Right. That's so true. So speaking of advice, that leads into my next question. If you could give one word of advice for aspiring leaders and current leaders, what would that be?
Network.
Okay, that makes sense. So, do you want to talk about how people can contact you, or how can they get onto a Lunch with Lorry or any of your networking events?
Well, the best way to get a hold of me is to connect with me on LinkedIn. If you want to come to an event, then you should send me a message. The second best way you can learn a little bit more about me, if you go to www.lunchwithlorry.com, it's pretty simple. You could go on there. You could submit a email request on there to get information. Those are the best ways. Lunch of Lorry is one of my businesses. I do 2 other things, which is interesting because on one of my businesses, I'm connecting people and helping people all over. And my main business, Clarity Management, I help broken companies get better. And that is a complete different thing. There isn't a lot of time to fix that. It isn't like kumbaya, let's get to know each other over 3 months, 6 months. I have to sometimes fix stuff in 2 weeks. And I have one other company called Accounting Solutions of Wisconsin, where I do bookkeeping and accounting. We have people to come to your site or virtually to help get your company's books all straightened out and do monthly accounting. But you also get the benefit of me and my partners, 75 years of experience and 6,000 connections. So I have a wide amount of things that I do. That's one of the things, when I mentioned earlier, I've always had an inquisitive, lifelong learning desire. It's the same thing in what I work. I have multiple businesses. I'm involved in a lot of things, a lot of organizations. That's just me.
That's really great. And it's an inspiring story. And I think if there are any introverts out there, you've probably given them a lot to think about. So thank you so much for joining me today, Lorry. This was so much fun. And I think this is a really great story. And I'm very happy to share this with my audience.
It was a pleasure being here. If I helped one person, I made a difference in the world, and that's all that matters. You can't help everybody. You could help someone.
I totally agree. Lead That Thing is a production of Optim LLC, helping businesses to find strategies for growth, strategize, energize, optimize. Join me next week on Lead That Thing to hear about how people are going out there to make a difference in their lives and for others. Until then, lead that thing.